Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to season 2 of the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kayla Smith, CEO of the Hormone P.U.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching, creator of the Hormone P.U.Z.L.E method, an infertility warrior, 2-time boy mom, and women's health expert. This podcast is for women struggling with infertility, painful periods, terrible PMS, or really just any symptom of hormone imbalance that they are ready to eliminate for good. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the fields of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get pregnant and eliminate those pesky symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season is packed with even more expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, giving you that jolt of energy that you so desperately need, sending you lots of virtual hugs, and inspiring you to take your fertility into your own hands and make that baby. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's get started on your road to transformation. On today's show, we have Joey Coppedge, who helps intended parents change their diet and lifestyle behaviors that might be threatening their fertility. While you probably guess what you should change to be healthier, eating more grains, drinking more water, etc., what holds most of us back are the systems of our bad habits that we have in place. And until we change those systems, we're far less likely to improve our health. Joey has worked in the wellness industry for just under a decade, helping people overcome roadblocks that empower healthy futures. He's proud to make services like this more accessible and affordable to everyone. With the use of Zoom video consultations 3 to 4 times a month, taking ownership of your fertility health has never been easier. You're already motivated, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is simply hold yourself accountable and honor your intentions. Well-versed in psychology and behavior change, he uses proven strategies and motivations to reprogram your anatomic unwelcome tendencies into deliberate unhealthy behaviors. Joey helps you to establish habits that will last a lifetime, well beyond our time working together. So on today's show, we're going to dive more into nutrition for fertility. We're going to talk about being prepared for IVF and IUI and all the lifestyle pieces you need to optimize your fertility. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Joey to the show. Hey, Joey, welcome to the show.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. So I would love to just dive in. Tell us a little more about you and how you started working around women's health and with fertility.
Yeah, so I'm a fertility nutrition coach. I help men and women to identify, behaviors that may be threatening their fertility. Oftentimes we don't know when we're doing that. So obviously we need someone else to help us figure that out. Before I was a fertility nutrition coach, though, I was just a nutrition coach. And I found myself at one point with a handful of clients who were either trying to get pregnant or having a hard time getting pregnant, or someone had gotten pregnant. And it was just, serendipitous that all at the same time I had this handful of women. And I realized, in my nutritional training, I had learned about, how to deal with women who were pregnant or were trying to get pregnant, but it was very, headline, it was very shallow. So I realized I really wanted to know more, and I feel like I could serve these clients better if I knew more information. And as anybody listening to this knows, there's a ton of information out there. Maybe too much sometimes, but there's all kinds of books and podcasts, and there's information that's available. And I just it's once you dive into it, it becomes a Pringles can, right? Once you pop, you can't stop. And from there, it just kind of made sense for me to, stay on this path and not just enhance this knowledge base for those clients, but enhance this knowledge base also because I realized in that experience that there are so many people that are going through this, that are either, having trouble getting pregnant, or they're doing IVF or whatever. There's so many people going through it, but they're kind of doing it, on the DL, right? They kind of feel like, oh, no one else is doing this, so maybe I people are not talking about it on Instagram as much as they're talking about, their baby showers, right?
Right.
So I just realized, it's really, really tough for people to be information overloaded. But it's also really tough for people to take power over their own journey when they, whenever there's so much conflicting and misinformation as well. So that's where I am. That's how I got here.
I love that. And did you guys have your own infertility story? Is
No,
that kind of how you specialized?
You mean me and my husband?
Yeah.
So we are trying to start our family. That's why we moved to California 2 years ago. We wanted to, we didn't want to raise kids in New York City, although there's nothing wrong with that. We're not that brave.
Right.
Just winter, taking care of myself there over the winter time is hard enough. I can't imagine a stroller too. But we moved to California to start our family planning journey or family making journey. And so, that is kind of another reason that sort of prompted me into like going into this more narrow of a niche, because I was kind of learning a lot about it on my own too.
I love that. I find that so many of my guests, that's why I asked that, are, on their own journeys in one area or another. And so that's why they're like learning it for themselves. And then it wants them to help other people with it. So I love that.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about this, and I know that, I've heard you talk about it too, but just, it's so important that we optimize our bodies before we go into an IVF cycle. So talk to me a little bit about that. How important is that to get our nutrition down, to get our lifestyle pieces down before we go down this road of IVF?
Yeah. So, we often think of, if we're going to go down the road of IVF, or we're going to go down the road of any kind of bodily change, even if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to, just makes any kind of change. Like if you have a blood pressure problem, or if you have any kind of medical, anything that you're trying to change, we often go into it with this attitude of, I need to boost something. Something needs to be bigger and better so that I can be healthier and stronger, or whatever that is. And in my opinion, our bodies don't ever want to be boosted at all. The problem is not that we have a boost lack. It's not our problem is not that we can't figure out how to boost it. Our problem is that we can't figure out how to get ourselves back to giving our bodies the bare minimum across the board of all the nutrients it needs in order for our bodies to work the magic that our bodies have been working for, millions of years. So, all that to say, the biggest boost that you really need to worry about when you're doing IVF in particular, or IUI, or anything with a assisted reproductive specialist, is letting them do the boosting, right? All these drugs that they're going to pump into you, that's the boost, okay?
Right.
That's the unnatural boost that we're looking for. And that's the extreme, right? But there are so many things you can do before that boost, and sometimes even instead of that boost, to enhance what your body's capabilities are already are, right? Our body really just wants us to have the bare minimum amount of every vitamin, every mineral, all of the fatty acids and the right amount of glucose, the right amount of protein. We just want the right amount. We don't want extras of all of these things, right? We know what happens if we get extra, right? We just store it until our body doesn't need it or can get rid of it. And sometimes it can be toxic. But our body really just wants the bare minimum of everything. And if we can figure out how to just find balance in that, instead of, sequestering our focus into one nutrient or one type of vitamin or one type of supplement, and we can instead, distribute our attention over all of it and give ourselves just enough of all of it, of a balance, and our bodies will truly show us the magic that they have.
For sure. I completely agree. And do you find that some of your clients, might come in with some nutrient deficiencies, or maybe they have, some absorption problems, or is that something you see? And is that something that we should really dive into if we're having some issues with fertility? Maybe it's a food sensitivity that we don't know we have, or an absorption
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's really important to, if you don't know if you're deficient in something, it's really important to, you can go to your doctor and get a test for these kinds of things. Or you can, you could even do it online. Sometimes they're not maybe as accurate, but you can get a test for like, what am I deficient in nutritionally, and otherwise. There are common deficiencies that people are deficient in, like vitamin D. Up to 50% of reproductive age women in the United States are deficient in vitamin D. Well, just so happens vitamin D is an extremely important element in the process of reproduction. What I also find, not even in terms of on a micronutrient level, but what I find in terms of on a macro level, is that most people that I work with or that are referred to me assume that they are overeating, and have probably assumed that they've been overeating for most of their lives because maybe they're overweight, and because their doctors and everybody around them has been telling them, you need to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And so they've gotten really, really good at eating less and less and less. And so now they're trying to, have a baby, right? They're trying to have this optimal, friendly environment for creating a baby, but their body is thinking, we're not really getting enough nutrients to supply reproduction. So, unfortunately, the first thing that goes usually is the reproductive system whenever we're shutting down and trying to regulate on a metabolic level, right? So a big obstacle that I get over, or I help my clients get over at first, usually is, how do we eat more food?
Right.
Which is really counterproductive to a lot of people's mindsets. But how do we get more food? I don't mean, how do we make you gain weight? Right. I just mean, how do we get more of the right kinds of food so we can finally meet those thresholds and give our bodies the fuel and the raw materials that they need to make all these parts work.
Yeah, I love when I hear a client say that, I'm eating more food and losing weight. And I'm like, yes, because you're eating the right foods.
No, I mean, could it get any better?
I know, right? Right. So let's talk a little about that. I know a lot of times I'll have a client come to me that says, well, my doctor told me to lose weight. Is that really the only piece I need to worry about? And what I find so frustrating too is sometimes a doctor will say that, but they don't say how. They're just like, come back and see me when you've lost weight. My client's like, what the heck? I don't even know how to lose weight, or I would be doing that. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's your thoughts there?
Well, I'll start by defending the medical community, and then I'll turn my back on them. Okay.
Right.
In their defense, obviously, this is what the medical community is kind of trained to know. They're trained to know that the statistics are kind of the king, right? And that, yes, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of negative, adverse clinical outcomes that are associated with people who weigh more, right? People who are, in that, I'm putting sarcastic air quotes on this, on that overweight and obese category. Those people do statistically show more, higher incidence of miscarriage, higher incidence of congenital malformations, higher incidence of insulin resistance, and gestational diabetes, and all these different, adverse clinical outcomes. Sure. So the logical conclusion that we usually hear in response to that is, well, if you lose weight, you could lower your chances of those things happening. And the reality is that's not the way it works. Just because people who weigh more happen to also be at higher risk of all of those adverse outcomes doesn't mean that weight loss in general is going to help. In fact, there was this really big meta-analysis. So basically a big analysis of lots and lots of different studies where they showed two groups. They divided everybody up into two groups. One group was obese women who were receiving standard prenatal care. So just, standard obese women living their life, go and have a baby. Great. The other group was obese women who were put on a weight loss intervention. So whether it be like some sort of diet or an exercise regimen or some kind of liquid diet or low calorie diet, there was all kinds of different diets, right? So there's two groups, one dieting, one not, both obese. And it showed in this meta-analysis, they showed the prevalence of things like gestational diabetes, high birth weight, things like that, things that we don't really want to be happening. And you would expect that that there would be a big difference between the group who dieted and the group who did not. You would expect that the group who dieted, all of those parameters would be much better, right? Lower incidence of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia and things like that. And the reality is, at the end of this study, there were no significant differences statistically to show that losing weight at all would change anything. And if you've ever tried to lose weight, it's a pain in the ass and it's really heart-wrenching and can really be tough on your ego and on your soul, right? But in reality, if it's not helping, why are we spending so much time and money and sorrow, worrying about it? And so that's one thing. And so I should say that whole meta-analysis is based on women who lost weight during pregnancy. They were trying to lose weight while the pregnancy was happening, or right before or during. So you might think, well, okay, what if we lost weight beforehand? Would that be helpful? So that brings me to the second study I'm going to tell you about. The second study is sort of the same in that there was two groups, one who did the weight loss interventions and one group who did not. And they measured live birth rate in this. Live birth rate obviously is the end all be all number one thing we're looking for. We are looking for a baby at the end of the day, right? So live birth rate is what they measured. And the women who were on the weight loss diet, their live birth rate was about 27%. And this is for people doing IVF. So 27% isn't unusual, right? For people around 39, 40, 41 years old. 27% was their live birth rate. And the women who were just receiving standard prenatal care, did not go on a weight loss diet, I think that theirs was only 1 percentage point lower. So not statistically significant at all. So losing weight, it may deserve a spot on the list of things that you might try to do to enhance your fertility. But in my opinion, it is the very last thing that we should focus on in terms of what do we need to do if we're trying to enhance our fertility. What you should really be focusing on is, what are the food choices that we are making? Are they the best food choices for me? Are they food choices that make me feel good mentally and physically as well? What about my eating behaviors? Do I have a negative relationship with food? How can I look at that? How quickly do I eat? How mindfully do I eat, right? Then you can look at things like hydration. Am I even hydrated? That's one really small but really big thing, right? What about my exercise and activity, right? A lot of people hear those words and they think, oh great, I got to go do high intensity interval class, but that's also not the case. Just walking your dog every day is more than not at all, and it makes a huge difference. And then of course, reducing the endocrine disrupting chemicals in your house is also a big deal, which is getting so much attention recently, or more so recently, which I think is really important. So all of those things need to go ahead of weight loss.
Right. And so where do you think this comes from? Why do you think doctors go there with weight loss?
I think it's just easy. I think it's an easy scapegoat because the statistics are there. There's so much research showing, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, whatever negative clinical outcome you can think of. There's so much research saying okay, people who have this negative thing also happen to be, or mostly happen to be overweight or obese. So the logical conclusion is being overweight or obese will make you have a negative outcome.
Right.
And so that's where that comes from. But I think that what's missing from that conversation is how much does it actually help to tell somebody to lose weight?
Right.
And, for all these doctors who do tell their patients to lose weight, A, how often is that a successful recommendation? And B, how helpful is it at the end of the day? Is it actually helpful? Do you notice once people do lose weight, if they lose weight, does it help their success rates? Yes or no? And I don't really think that they are able to get to that point because people find a way around the whole weight loss thing because it doesn't end up working in the long run. It's just, it hurts feelings and causes stigma and makes things worse.
Right. Exactly. And I find too, and I'm sure you feel the same, the more somebody focuses on like, oh, I've got to lose weight, this very like desperate, energy that they're putting towards it, it makes it that much harder.
Totally.
But when they're eating good foods and nourishing their body and they're moving because it feels good, and then weight loss is like a side effect, it's like a really fun side effect, then it
totally
takes that pressure off. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And it is stressful. Like you were saying, it's it can kind of create this scarcity mindset too, which is just one of the many problems that dieting in general can sort of produce, right? If you kind of always feel like I shouldn't be eating this, or I need to feel bad about eating this, or, every magazine I've ever read has made me feel ashamed about eating this one specific thing. If you always have that mindset, then when that specific food is around, your mindset will tell you, a little ego monster in the back of your head will tell you, you better eat that, because later on, whenever you have more control, you're never going to be able to eat it again. So right now you need to eat it. So when we're in this scarcity mindset, we believe that, we only have one chance to eat something. That's when we eat it all, right? Whenever I was a kid, I would eat all my Halloween candy like the week after Halloween.
Right.
Because I thought, and like after a while, you start to feel kind of gross, right? There's only so much candy you can eat and feel good about it. But even feeling gross, I felt like, well, I got to eat it all. Otherwise it's just going to be gone, which is obviously not the case, but that's what our mindset and our psychology has a lot to do with, the road we go down.
Yep, exactly. And I still cannot be around Halloween candy. Like, get it away.
Me neither. Don't put it in this house.
Nope.
Nope.
Literally, like ours
Sorry,
is
kids.
hidden in the back of my closet in my laundry room until it's time to pass it out. I'm like, I don't even want it in the kitchen.
Yeah. Nope.
Too funny. Cool. So let's talk about IVF and IUI. How important is it for us to understand the process of that?
Well, do you mean the process as in the 45 million thousand steps that it takes?
Yes.
And how we should be prepared for that?
Yes.
It's important. I'm a gay man married to a man, and we're having a baby that way, right? So we're doing the surrogate, we're doing the egg donor, we're pulling out all the stops. So my specific journey is a little bit different than, the journey that somebody might be going on if they've been having trouble getting pregnant for over a year and they're, doing it the old fashioned way. But I imagine that the process is sort of similar in that, you talk to a couple different doctors over Zoom. If you're doing it these days, you do it over Zoom, and they give you the whole spiel about how it works, how you're gonna, what day you got to do everything on, all these tests you need to get done beforehand. And I think that's a really important step, even though it kind of becomes redundant and repetitive, to just talk to quite a few doctors, because at the end of the day, listen, they're all doing the same similar things. If you live in the United States, you're living in the best place for this type of procedure, period. The technology is just better. The doctors are just more experienced. So you're already in a good place because of that. But at the end of the day, this is your family that you're talking about. So just having a good vibe with your doctor, I think, is a huge deal. Especially, we've all had that one doctor who kind of irked us a little bit one time, and then we could never stop thinking about them in that sense. And it is a very personal thing. It is your child and your family that you're talking about. So I guess that's an important big step in doing IVF or IUI, is understanding, who this teammate of yours is going to be.
For sure. And I just find, we talk about this a lot on the show, just being your own advocate and just really understanding that entire process, because I think knowledge is power. And the more you understand it, I think the easier it is to kind of go through those steps and get a positive outcome. So yeah, cool. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We're going to come right back in, and we're going to talk more practical tips. Like, okay, what foods should we be focused on? What should our exercise look like? How does stress play a role? So we'll do all of that when we come back. Hey y'all, it's Coach Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Hormone P.U.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. Whether you're struggling to get pregnant with pesky hormone symptoms, or you're working to build a career in the fertility and women's health space, we have you covered. Visit our website at www.coachkayla.com to learn more on how we can help you. Text the keyword fertility to 615-257-8855 for your free fertility meal plan. Hey, Joey, welcome back.
We're back.
Yes. So let's talk some practical tips. What are maybe 5 things that we need to focus on to help us optimize our fertility? Let's talk nutrition and, all the lifestyle pieces.
So why don't I give you my top 5 nutrition recommendations?
Perfect.
First of all, let me just put it like this, right? Our fertility is threatened by 3 big things: oxidative stress, hormone imbalances or disruptions to hormones, and chronic inflammation. There are lots and lots and lots of things that our diet can do to make those things worse, right? So diet's not always the answer. There are lots of things that our diet can do that are intended to make those things better, right? And to promote them. And you could go down the list of every single micronutrient and mineral and vitamin and phytonutrient and micronutrient and everything. And you could say, this actually plays a role in fertility because of this. But that is impractical and people can't, that's too much, right? I can't even memorize all of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So the best way to sort of narrow that down is to put nutrients, right? Which we're always looking for what nutrients are the best, is to put nutrients in the context of food so that you can put food in the context of your diet. And then you can put diet in the context of your lifestyle. And then you can take your lifestyle and that's your freaking grocery list right there. So how do you narrow it down? How do you narrow all of that information down to 5 foods to just put on your grocery list at the bare minimum? It's eating more nuts and seeds, right? This is where we're going to get a lot of our essential fatty acids and our antioxidant compounds from. Eating more fruits and vegetables. No one needs to hear that, but we all need to be eating more and more and more fruits and vegetables, probably more than you think you do. Omega-3 rich vegetable oils. We get plenty of omega-6 rich foods, right, which are pro-inflammatory. We get plenty of saturated fats from everywhere else. What we really, really need is balance. There's nothing wrong with omega-6s and saturated fats. You're welcome, everybody who heard that. There's nothing wrong with saturated fat. It's just that we always eat too much of that and out of balance with omega-3s. So we need more and more omega-3 rich vegetable oils if we can get that, if we can use that as a balancing tool. Whole grains. I'm like, what's the last one? Whole grains, right? And not just whole grain products, not just packages of food that say whole grains on them, right? Actual whole grains like corn and brown rice and quinoa. These are all whole grains that we need to be getting more of in order to help promote these prebiotic reactions that happen and promote our immune system and help us be healthier and fight off inflammation and chronic inflammation.
I agree. All of those foods are wonderful. And, and I liked what you said too. It's really about balance. Our body likes balance. And so it's having that balance, whole food nutrition is really important. So is there anything?
And balance is such a hard word too, right? It's like well, I don't know. What do I balance it with? Does that mean I'm allowed to have naughty things half the time and good things half the time? But in reality, if we stop focusing on what we don't need and just focus on what we do need and just focus on more of that and keeping the bad stuff out of your house or hidden in your back of your closet.
Right.
Is the way to do it. I realized I only said 4. The 5th one, if you eat meat, is eating more fish. We need more fish. That's, for most of our ancestors' history, fish has been a major part of all of our cultural diets, all of them. So we need that. and we need the essential omega-3s and DHA and EPA that comes from fish, which we can get from other places, but not in such high quantities. So fish is the last big thing.
I love a good fish.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. So is there any foods we really should stay away from?
Yeah, for sure. So, that list of 5 things were the things that our body is used to using as a tool and raw material to promote fertility and make us reproduce. The other things that about diet, like the dark side of the diet, that actively promote inflammation and promote oxidative stress and promote DNA damage and stuff like that, are things like foods that are high in saturated fats. Really just foods that are, I guess, just the focus on saturated fats and the forgetfulness of eating polyunsaturated fats is the problem. But understanding like what foods are high in saturated fats are a big way to sort of help us balance that out. Obviously, trans fats are the one thing that you should really be eliminating from your diet. Trans fats are really tricky because they fight for space in our cell membranes. They cause a lot of damage to our DNA as well, and to our cells in general. They fight, our sperm membranes, by the way, are a cell, and they have a membrane as well that trans fats compete for space for and cause a lot of stress. And we need our sperm to be functioning at high capacity. So that's, trans fats are the one thing you should really be eliminating, especially because the Federal Food and Drug Administration allows food manufacturers to have trans fats in their food as long as there's not more than half of a gram per serving. And if there's less than half a gram per serving, they can literally just put 0 on there. So you could really be eating trans fats all day without even knowing. It's a loophole that somehow is still legal. And adding trans fats to foods is illegal right now, by the way.
Wow.
But it's still going through its transition of they give you 10 years or whatever to phase it out.
Right.
So anyways, saturated fats, get rid of trans fats. It's the one thing I would ever suggest as a nutritionist, to just eliminate altogether trans fats. Processed meat, sausage, bologna, ham, anything that comes from your deli, even the things that come from the deli that say no nitrates are added or no nitrates are added to this. Sorry to tell you, but nitrates and nitrites, although they're a natural part of food, even the foods that say they don't have them in there, they have to use some sort of nitrite equivalent to preserve that food. Even if it says it's natural from celery water or whatever, it's the same thing. It's the same chemical compound that preserves that food, and it has the same sort of cancer causing agents in it. So processed meat, refined carbohydrates are maybe the biggest thing, because our bodies need a certain amount of time to digest our food, and whenever we eat these processed foods, like processed carbohydrates especially, we digest them so much more quickly, and that throws our body on a glucose and insulin roller coaster that is so easy to kind of stay on. You have to also keep in mind that these refined carbohydrates are designed to be extra delicious. They're designed to be hard to be satisfied by. They're designed to be hard to put down, right? So it's easy to eat a whole lot more of these foods and never be satisfied by them. So just kind of avoiding them altogether is really the solution. A lot of times we think we can do things in moderation, but if we're not allowing ourselves to eat because we're hungry and stop because we're full, then we'll just eat whenever we want to. And we'll eat whenever even if our body doesn't need us to be eating. And if we're eating foods that kind of trick us into being hungry when we're not, that's, that just adds to the problem.
For sure. Yeah. And I've some of those things that are in these foods manufacturers put, it's there to keep us addicted. It's there to keep us not satisfied, addicted. And then we're eating the whole bag of cookies when we were just going to have one. So yeah, just try not to bring them in the house and try not to have them around. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right.
And I'm a big fan too of if it's something you love, like if you're at a party and it's your, favorite cookie or grandma's favorite pie or whatever, let's have a little bit. Let's not, have the whole package, but definitely if it's processed something, then try to stay away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's a time and place, right? We should be able to go to a baby shower or Christmas or someone's birthday and enjoy celebrating them through through the culinary availability of delicious treats, right?
Right.
That's what it's for. And most of our lives, we have always been connecting positive emotions or negative emotions to food, and that's okay. It's okay to associate certain foods or dessert or whatever with certain feelings. It only becomes a problem whenever we sort of lose control over it, right? It also becomes a problem when we start to demonize all of the behaviors of eating sweet things, right? So if we always feel anxious about eating dessert, always, which can come from your doctor telling you to lose weight and stuff like that, then whenever it does become an appropriate time to eat a dessert, you can't even enjoy it in that moment. So it is never rewarding. It never ends up feeling good. And you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. My recommendation for dealing with indulgences and cravings and how do I eat sweet things and feel good about it and also avoid them at other times when I don't need them is, if you can come up with a deal with yourself to give yourself 60 seconds or 5 minutes whenever you're exposed to something like that, a trigger like that. Let's say it's just a piece of cake, for example. Give yourself 60 seconds to literally just sit and do nothing for 60. You can even count, you can breathe. And in that 60 seconds, use it to decide, is this something that I want? Obviously, I want it because it's yummy. But is it something that's going to make me feel good after? And is it something that I really do want right now? And the deal is, if you can give yourself that 60 seconds of contemplation, then at the end, you can either have it or don't, right? And if you decide after that 60 seconds, you know what, I do actually want this right now. I really do.
Right.
I want this. It will make me feel good. And I am happy about this choice that I've deliberately made. Then guess what? You can have it, and you've decided already how you're going to feel about it. And oftentimes after that 60 seconds, if you were just going to eat it because you're stressed out or because it was available, then you can decide, I didn't actually want that. Like, forget it. It's too much. I already know what I'm going to feel like afterwards. Right.
Right.
It's that little sweet spot of a moment where we can decide, is this going to serve me or not? We just need like a little bit more time we need to extend that sweet spot.
I love that. And I find too that if I can think about, if I eat this, I don't really want it. I'm just going to eat it because it's here and I'm going to feel like crap later. So that moment of clarity will usually stop me from eating something that I'm just like, I don't really want it. I was just going to grab it because I walked past it,
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, sometimes that works for people. Sometimes that works for people to, for them to be able to be around these foods and, make the right choice all the time. That doesn't mean, though, that you should shop for delicious, indulgent treats every time you go to the grocery store.
Right.
Because the truth is, my motto is, if it's in your house, it's going to go in your mouth at some point. Even that candy that's in the back of your closet right now, where it is. If you really have a craving, you can go get it. But if you just don't bring it into your house, you don't have to face that dilemma of, no, now I got to wait 60 seconds and talk to myself about whether or not I want this. So it is also important to, especially if you have a problem with, impulsive decision making, just go ahead and don't expose yourself to it. It really is as easy as making a plan before you go to the grocery store to not go down whatever aisle those things are on, or to not buy those things, or to have that conversation with people in your house that, like, listen, we all have a goal here, and I really want you to be on my team. How can you help me to, avoid this type of food and not bring it into the house anymore?
For sure. I completely agree. And I find too, one thing that helps a lot of my clients is they'll use one of the delivery services like Instacart, like click, one of the click lists, and then they don't even go into the store. They just can click their healthy choices online, and they're never tempted, with all the marketing and all that stuff. So,
right. And the whole bakery section.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's how I get my groceries as well. Although sometimes I do like to get out of the house and go to the grocery store.
Right.
It's usually I make worse choices when I'm there in person because
Yep.
I'm beholden to my habits.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's talk about stress a little bit. How does stress play a
Okay.
role in all of this?
Well, unfortunately, stress plays a role in every bad thing that's ever going to happen to us in our whole lives, right? It affects everything from our skin to our reproductive system to our mindset, to our sleep, right? It affects everything. There's a study recently of men who experienced 2 or more stressful life events in the past year, had impaired parameters for motility, morphology, and sperm count. So that's all parameters across the board. And when I say impaired, I mean like all these numbers have been reduced to the point where there's no way that you could produce a baby or a healthy baby with these sperm parameters. So those are just stressful life events. And the same goes for women. Stress. When we think of stress, we think of it in terms of anxiety. Right? There are certain stressors, like if someone's chasing you around with a knife, right? That's stressful, and you should be stressed out because that stress is sending messages to your brain to get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. But if we are feeling stress because of something we think is going to happen, or we assume is going to happen, or we just can't stop thinking about what could maybe happen, that's anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. So that's stress on a loop. That's stress on repeat. Mm-hmm. So then and that stress and hormone speak is cortisol, right? And cortisol's job is to tell all the parts of our body, hey, if you're not super duper important right now to getting away or to fleeing or to whatever, you need to shut down because we need to focus all of our attention on getting up and getting out of here because something stressful is going on. And our body is blind, right? Our body doesn't know what's happening. Our body just knows it feels stress or it doesn't. So when we allow ourselves to feel anxiety, or when we can't help but feel anxiety, one of the very first systems to get shut down in that process of shutting things down and reacclimating is our reproductive system. Mm-hmm. And when we shut it down, it takes a little while to get it running back to normal again. And so, having the stress over infertility treatments, or having the stress over not being able to get pregnant, is totally natural and normal. But knowing that the stress itself can cause more problems, it can also be more stressful,
right?
But knowing also gives us the opportunity to do something about it, right? Now we know, so we can ask questions like, how the hell do I stop this stress, right? I already know that my truth is that I'm having trouble getting pregnant, period. I already know that my truth is that I'm gonna have to go through this really shitty experience to get to a really beautiful one. So how do I deal with this stress in the meantime, so that it doesn't, make matters worse?
So how do we do that? How do we start to deal with some of this stress? Do you have any practical tips around that?
Yes. I think the very first big thing that can help people feel less stressed and more in control is sleep. Most people don't get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And if they do, it's maybe not quality sleep. Mm-hmm. But if you think about it in terms of like, okay, if you have a plan that I'm going to get up and go on a walk and I'm going to eat really healthy tomorrow, and I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to not go down the bakery aisle, and I'm going to get all the right, things that Joey just listed off on that list of things I should get. If you don't sleep well tonight, and then at 6 o'clock, your alarm goes off in the morning, and you're like, oh my God, I'm way too tired for this, right? The person you are when you're hitting the snooze button is different than the person you were when you made these plans, right?
Right.
So you might get up and you're like, I can't. And you roll over and I'll get up in a second. You roll over, I'll get up in a second. And then it's too freaking late. And then you didn't get up and do any exercise. And then you didn't, end up going on that walk with your dogs. So now your dogs are anxious and now you're anxious because of that. And now you've got to go to work, and now you don't really have time to go to the grocery store like you intended on doing. Starting off with your day being tired and stressed out leads to more tiredness and stress throughout the day. I think getting enough sleep is the first big key. But another big thing is what I had said before, like giving yourself this 60-second break sometimes when you are feeling stress, because we know that emotional eating is something that a lot of people struggle with. And it's not a bad thing. It's totally normal. We all crave relief from stress when we feel stressed. And oftentimes that relief from stress that we've taught ourselves will work is something that has to do with being in the kitchen. So if we can somehow get ahead of that and sort of break that chain of feeling stressed and then craving something to eat, that can really be helpful too. How to do that is really just starting off, by identifying it. When do I feel stressed, and coming up with something to do instead, whether it be counting to 60, right? Or maybe it's just going outside instead, or maybe it's, going to bother your husband in the other room instead of going to the fridge. And I do that. I say that from experience of my own, right? When I'm feeling stressed or there's too much going on, all it takes is me blinking and suddenly I'm like, my head's in the refrigerator. I'm like, how did I get here? How did this happen? And it just, it's normal. And it's what I've taught myself over my entire life to do, right? A little bit of stress can be relieved by going and getting something to eat, but I also need to acknowledge and get ahead of that link in the chain, so that I can, put other responses in place.
Well, for sure. Oh, I love it. Well, let's talk about where everybody can find you. How can they work with you? And, tell us where you're at on social.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. It's Fertility Nutrition Coach, at Fertility Nutrition Coach. You can email me and we can set up a time to have a conversation about your own fertility journey and how, optimizing your nutrition can make it better and more successful. My email is info@fertilitynutritioncoaching.com. And you can also set up something by just going straight to my website. It's fertilitynutritioncoaching.com.
Awesome. And do you have any freebies for us on your website?
I don't have any freebies, although I'm happy to talk to anybody for free. So I guess I do have a free strategy call. What that'll do is, if you go to the website that I just said, you can put in your, just quick information, and then it will prompt you to fill out sort of a self-assessment. And this is sort of a way to help me understand what are some of the limiting factors that may be getting in the way of you getting pregnant or having a successful treatment. And then from there, we'll set up a conversation and I can say, like, listen, this is everything that you could change and be doing better. And a lot of these things people often already know they could be doing. But my job is really not to tell you what to change. It's really to help you change the things that will make you better in the first place.
I love that. And we'll have all that in the show notes. It'll be really easy to find. Awesome. So any final thoughts, words of encouragement, anything you want to leave us with?
Yes. What was I just thinking about? Something about treatment and, oh yeah. You had mentioned to me earlier about how, how can nutrition really make it is it really worth the money? Is it worth, there's 1,000 things you're about to spend a whole bunch of money on if you're going through an IVF journey, right? Or any kind of assisted reproductive treatment. Why is it that spending another, however many hundreds of dollars on nutrition coaching, how in the world is that even more worth it? And how's that going to make me less stressed out? And the reality is every cycle that you go through is going to cost you like $15,000 or $20,000, right? Not for me, but for your fertility doctor. And that sucks, but it is what it is, right? That's just the truth. And that's what we have to do. Right. Unfortunately, what they don't really tell you whenever you're going through this journey is that you probably won't be successful on the first time. You might not be successful on the second time or the third time, depending on age, right? Depending on lots of different factors. And, women who are up in, 41 and 42 and older than that, it can take 6 and 7 and 8 cycles just to finally result in a live birth.
Wow.
So multiply that by 20 grand, right? And that's, more than I've ever had in my savings account in my entire life.
Right.
And so the question, so we go back to the question of, is paying, $1,200 to work with me for 6 months really worth, being able to cut down on some of those cycles? Heck yeah, it is. It's, it's like, I think what I charge for 6 months is only like 4% of what one cycle would cost. Right. And if I can save you even one cycle, hopefully I can save you a whole lot more. And hopefully we can just go ahead and get you pregnant much more quickly. If we can go ahead and save you one cycle's worth of time, money, and emotion, I think it's worth it.
For sure. For sure. I love it. Well, it's so fun having you here, Joey. Thank you for being here.
This was great. Thank you.
Yeah, so fun. Well, thank you all for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Until next time, bye. Hey, hang on just 1 second before you go. I want to make sure that you are aware of all of the amazing free resources that I have for you on my website at CoachKayla.com. From a fertility meal plan, a cycle syncing quick start guide, a holistic healing cookbook, as well as master classes, blog posts by me and some amazing experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition. So many wonderful resources that will help you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of infertility, but there just wasn't. And so that's why I decided to create all of this for you. So make sure that you go and check it out and you take advantage of this plethora of support that I have provided for you. And spoiler alerts, these were some of the same tricks and the same foods that I used to get myself pregnant, not once, but twice, even after my doctors said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. So make sure you take advantage of that. And I cannot wait for you to be my next success story. So thanks, love. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in today to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Check out the show notes for today's episode at CoachKayla.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.